Hello. In the 80s and 90s there were two primary competing formats for camcorders. There was the VHS-C and Video 8, both of which had higher quality versions, Super VHS-C and Hi8. But really the 8mm one was vastly more popular. But most people didn't have 8mm home recorders. Well, some people did. And today we're working on one. Let's have a look. So this machine is one which I'd lent to a friend, and it came back, he said it stopped working almost immediately. So we need to investigate what's wrong. It's model EVS1000E. Let's just see what it does mechanically, if that's presumably where the problem is, or if it's just a picture problem. Right, so switch it on. So far so good. Don't think it's a tape in there. Let's pop in a tape. Sounds okay. Where's the operation? And then it sounds like it shut down almost immediately. Okay, let's look at the picture if there is one. I should show you the connectors on the back. So as well as aerial connectors, we have one in which can be composite or S-video, and an out which can be composite or S-video, and then another out which could be composite or S-video on SCART or S-video here. So we're going to be just using these ports for a moment. Okay, I'm just going to try rewinding. That stopped as well. Play. Whatever I do, it seems to be just switching itself off again. Fast forward again, it just stopped. Okay, let's have a look at the deck and see if we can see what's wrong. Okay, as soon as we look at it, we can kind of see something is seriously adrift here, that it's not laced properly. On the input side, we can see we have laced properly around this guide and then around the head, but then on the exit side, we seem to have missed this guide here. So the tape is not going properly past the head, nor is it going past the capstan and pinch roller. It might get damaged on eject. Let's have a look. Power it up again. Press eject. Oh, it's not happy, is it? Oh dear. Can we eject? So it's unlaced properly, albeit not very smoothly, and now it will not eject. Okay, power cycle it. This is starting to feel like it may be a power supply problem, the way it was sort of working and not working. Let's try eject now. Oh, it's trying to lace up again. But lace it. Oh, what a mess. Okay, we've ejected. So let's power down. So we can see we have a serious problem with the mechanism, because this guide should have come back here. And there was also the way it was operating was very odd. So that's somehow become disconnected. This is almost certainly a dead loss, because whatever's broken, it's going to be a part that we won't have. Something snapped, or I mean, it could be mistimed, but most likely snapped on the bottom of the deck. Oh, that's a shame. But let's take the deck out and see if it's obvious what's wrong. So the machine is powered down. I've got to do a bit of dismantling to get the deck out. Now, I'm not sure if I've ever worked on this model before. I'm much more familiar with the later EVS1000 decks, than this EVS1000. The deck is free at the back but not at the front, so there may well be screws underneath the display here, so I'm going to have to take a bit of the front off. With a flexi cable here from the front control panel, and I think I need to disconnect that before I can take the front off. Well, the service manual doesn't seem to help very much as to how to disconnect this ribbon cable, so I'll just take a look. No, that doesn't help. Yes, the connector's here, so should be easy enough to remove that. Put it up. Okay. And there was a connector for the control here as well at that point. 2 screws off the front, and also this control just fell off here, so I'll put that somewhere safe. Now we have access to screws here and one you can't quite see over here, which I think, is it those 2 or these 3 I need to remove? No, those ones off the front in the black plastic, they should stay in for the time being. Okay, we have flexi cables at the bottom. Having removed the flexi cables at the bottom, we probably have sufficient access to look at the deck. So do we gain access to the deck by taking this PCB off? Okay, I've disconnected 2 cables. Now we can see the mechanism. We should be able to see why it's not loading properly. So this will be the loading motor here. Why is this guide free to move? That shouldn't be. The actual loading motor is down here, and that goes through a worm drive to this gear, and then goes to another worm drive to this gear. It's a bit awkward. There are 2 connectors here. One would be for this motor, the other would be for the front carriage motor. So if I operate this motor, I think this is going to be the right one to operate the lacing mechanism. Okay, I'm running at only about 3 volts. I'm being quite careful. Maybe need a little bit more voltage. And that guide has gone forward and this guide has not. So we are all over the place with this side of the mechanism. That one appears to be the pinch roller, and then you can see part of the mechanism for the lacing on that side. So we do need to go down a bit further into this deck. Of course, there's going to be more timing things we need to watch as you take it apart. There will be timing marks on here, but I'm just going to add my own for a moment. I'm fairly sure what's happening here, that this is rotating properly, but the arms which are supposed to connect from here to the loading arm are somehow disconnected. So I'm going to have to take this off from this actuator at the top and then take the cam off. Okay, 1 circuit removed. Remove that item. Now maybe we can get to the cam, and this somewhere under here is what's become disconnected. Off with that cam, and a plastic component fell out. So it would seem that this has all fallen apart. Something here is no longer connected to that guide. Right, let me show you the pieces we have. So there's the one cam there, and this arm should connect somehow to the slider there. We have this has fallen out the bottom of the machine, which is presumably the reason that it's become disconnected from the arm, and I believe this fits into the arm there. I believe that push fits, but is there no other way of holding it in? So that's a concern. And one other component has fallen off, which is this plastic assembly. And looking at Fig 3.4, we can see through the deck from the top what certainly appears to be this component, which is a brake release arm. And I believe it fits on this bush here. I believe it fits on this bush here. So we just need to find out how that fits such that this part is visible from the top of the deck. Several components to reassemble. Oh, and the other part, of course, that came off is this. This is the loading lever assembly, and that pin, of course, sits in the cam. So let's not worry about that part yet. We need to get the other components assembled. Looking at the diagram for the top of the deck, we can see there's a component which is part of the brakes, which sits here. There's two, and one here has a protrusion through the bottom of the deck, which they call the axle, and that's this component here, and it sits in a rectangular slot, which we can see in the diagram, and that needs to push against the flat end of this brake release arm. So that must be inserted like so. So that is in the right place. However, it may be too early to install this, because I think we need to sort out the problems with the loading arms first, and that pin that seems to have escaped. So let's look at that. Our big problem is this pin, and presumably it goes through this hole and connects this to the slider. We can connect this sliding arrangement to the arm. That's going to be a little fiddly, because when I try to reassemble it, this cam is going to be in the way. Right, I've used the motor to wind the loading system into just the right spot that we can see the other side of the loading motor, the loading arrangement, and you can see that that same pin is just pushed into the copper slider. So that pin, which is here, is supposed to be just pushed into this hole. Maybe it requires a dot of glue, but first problem is going to be getting this assembled in such a place that I can push that pin back through and that my markings line up. So in the first instance, I've just got to get that pin installed, and then I'll deal with the alignment possibly by just pulling this off slightly and rotating this until my green lines line up, or indeed the holes that the manufacturer have used. So this is the tricky bit. How do I connect that up so that it doesn't all fall apart again, and get this pin into its guide along here? It's going to be a bit of fiddling about. Okay, so I've got it into such position that the arm is in the right place for the pin to be pushed through. The alignment here is probably not correct, but I'm just going to sit it down onto that gear for now and see if I can put that missing pin back in place here without it all falling apart. So the challenge is going to be to refit this pin, which you can about to see there, into this point here on the guide, and then through to the arm underneath. I won't be able to film that because having the camera in the way will stop me from doing it. So I'll have a go and I'll let you know how it works out. Okay, I've got that pin refitted there, and it goes all the way through and meets the arm. The problem is that it's extremely sloppy, and I'm concerned that if I tip it up it'll just fall out. It definitely needs a dot of glue or something to hold it in place. Right, some time has passed, the glue is set, so we now have the arm connected to this slider, and the pin won't fall out, and the arm is free to swing side to side. So I can set about reassembling this. The tricky bit being how to reassemble it. So I need to get this arm has a pin here that needs to sit in the slot, and I need to get it timed. So for that I think I'm going to power this until my green mark comes round to meet that side, which hopefully will be, yes, it'll be when the arms are that way. So let's do that. Okay, I think I have it lined up, so I should be able to unlace and relace now. Okay, they're set correctly, aren't they? Okay, I have them correctly set again. I'm going to unlace a little bit because they're sat against the springs at the end, which is making it tend to pop out. So I want to unlace it slightly so I can refit the rest of the components without any risk of anything popping out of place. You see those alignment marks are correct? Good. Right, so it's sort of semi-laced at the minute. I should now be able to refit this brake arm. And this component here has to sit alongside this from the other side of the deck. Okay, that looks correctly placed. Now we have this, where that pin sits in the cam gear. That looks correct. Now we should be able to refit the circlips there and there. Ideally, of course, we'd replace them with new ones. Right. Now I think I can put this PCB back, reconnect any connectors that have been taken off. Okay, that's all back in place, so we've got these flat connectors to refit. I'll do them from the underside. I may be getting a bit ahead of myself in that I'm going to refit these screws even prior to testing it, but if I tip it upside down I don't want things falling around. So I've got these two screws and one at the front to do. I did get ahead of myself because I've made it rather hard now to reconnect these, so I will drop it out again so that I can get to these a little bit better before I refit it. That was silly of me. So what I need to do is refit these flexi cables before I fully install the deck. Do you know, I might unplug the flexi cables from the other end. Probably what I should have done in the first place, because it's just going to be too hard otherwise. Okay, now I can reassemble it all and put the connectors in at the other end. Okay, so now it's reassembled. Both of the loading arms are almost in the fully laced position. It's not up against the springs, but it's pretty much laced up. So when I power it up, you should see it unlace both of those, because it'll just try and do a bit of a reset. So hopefully we'll see those unlace and come back to a sensible position. Okay, let's power it up now. Not quite. I think we've got the pinch roller on the wrong side of that arm. Oh dear. That's a bit awkward. I may have to take the deck out again. Let's see what's the minimum I need to do to fix that. I just need access to the loading motor probably. If I can just get it to lace up, I may be able to get this back in the correct configuration. Right, what did I do wrong with the pinch roller? I think I've got something incorrectly set, probably a cam position set incorrectly on the other side for positioning the pinch roller. So I'll have to take the board off the back again and have a look. There's no doubt that the two gears here are correctly timed with respect to each other, because there's a large tooth here which only would fit in the large receptacle on this side. So those two are correctly timed, and this is the cam follower here that drives the pinch roller, and that looks correct too, but something's definitely wrong. I think what may be wrong is this on the top part of the deck is supposed to be engaged in that pin there. I think that's what's gone wrong. We should be able to just pop that over. I'm still not engaged with the pinch roller, but that might just be something that might not have driven it far enough. So let's see if we can now unlace without things all stopping. Right, let's see if that's fully unlaced. Yes, that's fully unlaced. That looks like a much happier deck. Okay. I don't know why it's not engaging with a pinch roller, but that could just be not a fault. That could just be because I'm not driving it properly. So let's reassemble it and try it again. Okay, bearing in mind I don't have the front panel connected up at all yet. Let's just see if we can power it up and if the deck looks happy. Power up. That looks sensible. Let's see if it'll take a tape. And if that works, then we'll reconnect the front panel. No, it doesn't work. What's wrong? It's behaving strangely, a bit like a VHS machine does when it's got too much light on it. So that might be part of the problem. Let's just put something over that so we can't, don't flood it with light. Try again. Doesn't seem right. No, it's not happy, is it? What we have is some kind of front loading problem, which is odd because I didn't think I'd fiddled with the front loading, because every time you switch it on, it looks like it's trying to do an eject or find out where it is, and it's failing. So, front carriage problem. Okay, deck out again. So, what could be wrong? It's not obvious this time. Fully laced, though the pinch roller is not engaged with the capstan, which I still worry about. I think that extra bit where it goes beyond and the pinch roller disengages, I think that's for the head cleaner roller to engage with the head. Right, so let's fully unlace. And I'm beginning to think it may be an unrelated fault, such as a power supply fault. I will have a look at the power supply. Okay, disconnected the cables. I'm afraid I had to pull on the wires because there's no way to get to the socket to release it. I think we need to bend these out of the way slightly. Aha, there you go. So likely suspects are any of these capacitors on the low voltage side. The high voltage capacitor doesn't usually fail, though I had that fail in a printer once and that caused a lot of destruction. There's cobweb in there as well. So let's see, can I get to the board? Looks like I just undo a few screws and I should be able to take the board off. Right, the first thing I'm going to do before I do any work on this is discharge that capacitor. And I'm not the type to start shorting things out and creating big scary sparks. I don't like that sort of thing, so I'll use a resistor. But let's just see if there's some voltage on there first. Oh, okay, there's only a fraction of a volt on there, so it's safe to carry on. I'm starting to stop blaming the power supply because I've not found any bad capacitors yet. For example, looking across C16, you should see capacitors 14, 36 and 16 pretty much all together. So about 2,500 microfarads ballpark across C16. So here's C16 here. I have a remote control foot switch for my ESR meter. So that's about 2,500 microfarads, just as I expected. One last capacitor check. C15 should be about 1,000 microfarads. Close enough. Right, so we're not seeing mass capacitor failure in the power supply. I think we need to go back to the deck. Okay, I've refitted the power supply. Now, normally if a deck does strange things, you would blame the mode switch, and that may be a possibility. But the problem is that the front loading mechanism was also doing strange things, and that doesn't rely on the mode switch, especially this type that's got a separate motor. But it might be worth checking the mode switch anyway. I'll have to go and find it. It's going to be somewhere on the bottom of the deck. I might have a slightly defective tape actually. The door is jamming on it. That doesn't help. Okay, I've put a tape in which has a good door on it, but it's not laced up. That's never right. Is it trying to lace now? And if I hit eject, it won't eject. So this lever here is part of the release mechanism. Something's not quite set properly there that's preventing the eject from releasing. I don't have a clear enough picture of the way this should be assembled, but looking at what I can make out from the service diagram, the eject lever here I think should be on the other side of the slider lock, as it's called. So that might be why we're having such problems with the front loading mechanism. So I think I need to get that over to the other side of there. Under here is where the mode switch is, and I definitely want to take these off and have a look at the mode switch as well. Okay, here is the mode switch. Ideally, we'd want to take that out and clean it properly, but that looks like too big a disassembly job. Right. I've been able to disconnect the actuator here, so now I can swing this backwards and forwards a number of times, and hopefully that will work the deoxit into the switch. And then I'll reconnect this lever and we'll give it a whirl. Righto, that's reconnected. Let's put the screws back into this board and reassemble everything and try it. Okay, it's sort of semi-reassembled. Well, let's just see if it will do something sensible with that tape. Switch on. Nothing. Nothing at all now. It's not coming out of standby. Check a few things. Try that again. Just power up. Oh, that sounds better. Now it's in standby. Let's try eject. That looks right. And will it take the tape in? Good. Well, we'll have to reconnect the front panel in order to test any deck functions. Inject the tape again. Okay, let's do that. Okay, with the front panel on now, we can check the machine. We'll go through its paces. What happened then? It's just gone nuts again. It's lacing up with that tape in there now. Eject, please. Oh. All I've done was put the front panel on. Okay, with the front panel removed, it just went through a proper eject sequence. Put tape in. And that's correct and proper. I don't know why the front panel should be upsetting it. On some VHS machines, you can get into kerfuffle with the door opening mechanism with the front panel, but that's not so here, so I don't know why that happened. Oh well, let's try putting it back on again. Put the front panel on, but not reconnect to the flexi cable from here. So it's just checking that there's no mechanical reason for the front panel to be breaking it. I haven't done up all the screws yet either. So let's just try that. No, it doesn't like the front panel being on. It's doing crazy things again. Take the front panel off again. So the only thing that was connected was the jog and shuttle control. I'll disconnect that. The flexi cable wasn't refitted. Right, let's try it again. It's still laced, that's not right. Too much light. Try eject. Alright, that's correct. Maybe we do have too much light. I'll turn off one of my lights. Okay, let's try a tape. And eject. And that's all correct and proper. So could this cable be doing the mischief? Unlikely, but you know, one thing at a time. That looks correct and proper. Okay, I'll refit the front panel without the flexi cable. Try it again. Tape. Eject. Correct and proper. I'll fit some screws and we'll carry on like this. Okay. Looks good. Let's reconnect the flexi cable. Most of the connectors we've had up to this point have just been push fit, but this is one where you pull the retainer out and then it goes in at very low insertion force. And now we'll try rewind. A little noisy. Fast forward. Play. Pause. All seems a little noisy, but working. I wonder if we can work out why it's making that noise. Okay, I've now got it the right way round. Having moved that flexi cable out of the way, let's try rewind. Well, it's not making the graunching noise. I guess it just makes that sort of noise in rewind. Try fast forward. And above all play, because it was graunching in play before as well. Ah, nice. Nice and quiet. And freeze frame. Good. Oh, we can start looking at some pictures. By the way, something I hadn't mentioned before, the reason this deck laces so much further than a camcorder is because it uses more of the tape in order to have place to record and play the PCM digital audio. So the PCM digital audio is recorded beyond the end of the video information in a part of the tape that's not used on most camcorders. Right, okay, let's put a bit more together and test it, see if we have pictures. Okay, I've put the bottom on and the screws for the front panel, and then discovered that the headphone volume control needs to go on the inside of this. But let's just test it again. All is well. But now I've got to take some of it apart again in order to fit the headphone volume control, which sits just there. Okay, back together with the volume control. Let's just test it's still happy. Good. Put the top lid on and, well, maybe I won't. Maybe we'll look for pictures first. Right, let's press play and see if we get anything. Oh, good. Good pictures, and we can see sound there as well. Excellent. Good pictures and sound. Okay, now with the top cabinet on, fully reassembled. Display's a little dim. Not much we can do about that. But a nice working machine. There will be an adjustment for the shimmer on freeze frame somewhere in either a menu or an adjustment at the back. This is probably not quite the correct remote control, but it does the job. The menus are only available from the SCART output. When I select the SCART output, I can adjust the still frame picture steady. So that's fixed that problem. That idea of only putting the menus out on the SCART output is a good one. The EVS1000 was a bit known for sticking out rubbish on all of the video outputs. So the S video output that you'd be using for copying had a terrible habit of saying stereo every time there was a glitch in the tape and it was dropping in and out of stereo. Really unhelpful when you're trying to do editing or copying from a tape. So I quite like the way it was done on the older EVS1000. This machine's worked out really well. So what were the original problems? Let's see. I think the mode switch caused the deck to hammer a lot, and that probably threw that pin out that caused the problem with the right loading arm. Then the problem with losing alignment of the carriage to the deck, that was probably my fault for taking the wrong screws out the front when I was dismantling it. I think also the hammer was that the fact that the deck was in total turmoil is probably what threw off the sliding arm at the front, which caused part of the mechanism to collide with itself during unlace. Why it kept playing up when we put the front panel on, don't know, but we certainly did see some light sensitivity. I've got some new lights in my workshop and maybe that just flooded the deck with too much light. So I think we've bottomed out all of the faults that we had here, and we understand why they happened and sorted them out. Now, you know, I do get a few detractors who leave some comments on my videos, and let's think about the sort of things they're going to say. Let's beat them to it today, shall we? They're going to say, it's my fault I didn't have high quality service manuals that I could actually see all the deck components and how to assemble them, because I don't have the proper service manual, I only have a downloaded copy. They might say, I really should have replaced, not just cleaned, that mode switch. And I really should have replaced whatever component it was, that pin and the slider assembly, not glued it in. Glue? What are you playing at? And they'll say, oh, well, it's my fault that I disassembled things in the wrong order and caused a problem with the cassette carriage going out of alignment with the deck. And they're going to say I should have serviced the whole machine while I was here and maybe replaced the pinch roller and some other parts. Well, some of those things may have a certain amount of validity to them, but in reality we have to deal with the manuals we can get today and the spare parts we can get today, and sometimes we just have to do what we can to fix things. And it's come out pretty well, hasn't it? I hope you've enjoyed what I've done here. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now. Well, wouldn't you know it, just as I'm about to release this, 12V Vids did a video on a much smaller 8mm deck, but it's got the same U-mechanism in it, and it had the same problem with that pin falling out, plus loads of other trouble, just like I've had. Oh well, one of those things, you beat me to it.